Hello and welcome to Camp Xbox. Hidden gems and underrated games are some of the best topics on YouTube. Of course, we know the best of the best, but it's always interesting to hear what games you might have missed along the way. Today, I selected 6 Xbox 360 games that are often overlooked. I've made an effort to select games that I genuinely believe were overlooked or deserve higher praise. You may see games today that are listed elsewhere, but you might also discover something new. I also have a list of Hidden Gem 360 exclusives that feature different games, so if your favorite, like Lost Odyssey, isn't here today, it might be on that list. All footage was captured off of an Xbox 360, and I'd like to thank my YouTube channel members for their support, but let's go ahead and hop into this one. First on today's list is the Saboteur. This was released in 2009 for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC. EA published it and it was developed by Pandemic, who we might see again later. Pandemic was a fantastic studio that brought us games like Mercenaries and the Battlefront series. Unfortunately, towards the end of their lifespan, their games were not the hits that one would expect. The Saboteur would get mixed reviews, and I remember this one getting little fanfare. I had only heard of it after picking it up from a bargain bin not long after it was released, and I enjoyed it, and I still think it holds up. In the Saboteur, you play an Irishman named Sean Devlin. You are a race car driver in Paris during the Nazi occupation of World War II. Your goal is to slowly eradicate the Nazis from Paris. So it's not your typical war game, it's more about a resistance front that feels like a nice companion to that year's Inglourious Bastards, though this game goes for more of a noir style that I do love. It's highlighted with its black and white visuals. The whole game has a seedy mood, and though not only in black and white, when color appears, it makes the world feel different and unique. It's going for something special here, and I can appreciate that. The Saboteur is an open world game. You will be traveling around by walking, driving, and fighting with some gunplay mixed in. You move around areas that are taken over, and you do tasks to eradicate the Nazis. It's a game of its time because you have played games similar to it, and it's familiar. It's similar to Ubisoft games like Assassin's Creed, yet that's not a bad thing. I think doing this in this setting and time helps make it feel unique, along with the brawling, which takes a significant focus here. Throw in a neat perk system, and I think it does enough right that even if it's familiar, it manages to stay enjoyable throughout. It's just one of those games that captures a fun and unique story, which is great to explore. Pandemic knew how to make games that kept you coming back, and the way this one has a fun setup of you shooting and roaming around, it kept me hooked. Mix that with a fun art style, and I think this is a game more people should check out. If you like something stylish or open world games, this one deserves a look. Next is Shadowrun from 2007, which was released on the Xbox 360 and PC through Games for Windows Live. It was published by Microsoft Game Studios and developed by one of my favorite developers, Vasa Games, serving as their final game. If you were there, you would know about the controversy this game sparked when it was first launched, as well as its mixed reviews. See, this was an online-only game with only a bot mode and a training mode for single player. Nowadays, this is more acceptable, but in 2007, you were expected to launch a game at full price with some sort of single-player mode. Not only that, but this game is tied to the long-running RPG franchise Shadowrun, and this one attempted to make it into an online shooter, which would alienate some fans. And in some ways, I do think these statements are valid, but I also think it's worth looking at as a fun new side of the universe. And additionally, this can be bought at a lower price point nowadays, making an online-only experience less bitter, even though this game is a blast and was a blast when it was new. It's still playable online too, and there are communities that are set up to continue playing this, along with getting the achievements. The game isn't entirely active, but they have scheduled days to play, and I'll be sure to link their Discords in the description if you're interested. So know that before you get into this one is meant for online play, and you will probably have to join a community to play it. Shadowrun is a character-based first-person shooter where you mix magic and guns. You play from a mix of fantasy races with humans, elves, dwarfs, and trolls, and all of them have racial abilities. At the start of each match, you gain a certain amount of money, and you buy not only the weapons and equipment you use, but also the magic abilities you use. Things like making trees that heal the group. You can see through walls, teleport, and there's a bunch of fun moves you can pull off. This game gives you a broad mix of combinations to mix and match to make something unique every time you play. There's not a ton of game modes, but they are all fun, and there is a solid mix of map types, and it's one of those games that's easy to pop into and just have some fun with it. I'm sure if you find a group, it will be that same feeling. It has that classic shooter feel of the time, feeling somewhere between Halo and Counter-Strike, the type of shooter that we had before Call of Duty 4 would change the genre so much. It's smooth and easy to understand, and there's a fun mix of weapons to choose from along with a katana. This one is worth checking out if you're willing to find a group, but alone I wouldn't say it's a must-buy. Though I still think it's an underrated game for the 360 because it is a fun time, and it's backwards compatible on the Series and One consoles. Next up is Blur from 2010, which was published by Activision and developed by Bizarre Creations, the same people who created the incredible Project Gotham Racing series, and they made another awesome racing title here with a harder arcade edge. It was released for the 360, PS3, and PC. This one was well reviewed upon release, but was considered a commercial failure, which ultimately led to Bizarre Creations' closure. I feel like it's a game that gets brought up more often now, but is still an overlooked great game. Blur is an arcade racer with real cars. It's a lot like Sega All-Star Racing in terms of handling, feel, and gameplay. You drive around on realistic courses, drifting and swerving all around while picking up power-ups. You get things like missiles that you can shoot out, a boost, a lightning move, and a whole bunch of other things to make the racing game more in your face. Your opponents will throw these in your face constantly, and you will always be catching up. This is not a racing game you can just lead in first and win. It will be down to the wire, and that tenseness is great. It controls well, and much like Project Gotham Racing, molds a nice balance between arcade and a simulation type feel. Cars feel heavy, but not to the point of being realistic. It allows the drifts to feel great, but you can still move with swiftness to dodge out of the way of obstacles. It's all on a nice mix of realistic tracks that look great. It's a solid looking 360 game, and all of the mixing of the neon lights gives it a nice nightlife style and a really solid look that feels like another underrated racing title, Split Second. The layout of this game is quite simple, where you have simple menus and you complete different styles of races as you move along, unlocking cars and tracks constantly. It's stuff that you have seen before, but I've always liked this simple racing gameplay style. It's easy to just hop into a race, track your stat, and there is no unnecessary fluff here. It's easy to play, which makes you addicted playing game after game. It's sad that this one didn't catch on because it's a blast of an arcade racer. One that, if you like racing games, you should definitely check out. Next is Eternal Sonata, which came out in 2007 for the 360 but did see a PS3 release later on. It is published by Namco Bandai and developed by Tri-Crescendo Games. This game got pretty good reviews on launch, but it feels like a game that was forgotten for a long time. Nowadays, I see a lot of people saying the plot is boring, yet I think Eternal Sonata is one of the most beautiful and interesting games of its generation. Much like other games on today's lists, there are flaws, yet there is something here with its style that I can't stop admiring. First off, this game is such an odd concept. It's set within the dying mind of Frédéric Chopin, who passed away at the way too young age of 39. He is one of the great composers of the 1800s, mainly working solo with a piano. I don't know a ton about classical music, but you will recognize a lot of his music that pops up here. You follow a plot in his dying mind of a gorgeous world, and music seeps into everything, including the concept. It's such a weird idea, but it's something that I've never seen before, and I like that. On top of that, it deals with topics like depression, and it's a lot to take in. It also teaches a lot of history, which I love to see too. Though this game is inspired by music, it also feels inspired by classic paintings. Everything has a pastel paintbrush feeling. Colors bleed, and it has a look that I haven't experienced in many games of its generation, feeling like a cel-shaded game, but with a softer color palette and strong backgrounds. it feels like you slipped into a classical painting. Mix that with the works of Chopin and the original music made for it, and you have something that is beautifully crafted. I won't lie, there is a bit of style over substance here, but I've never liked that term as a negative because sometimes an amazing style can make up for some of the most memorable moments in gaming, and it can be boundary pushing. The gameplay is a little simpler if you've played an RPG before, but it is certainly not a disappointment. You travel the world opening chests, following a plot, and fighting monsters. The combat is turn-based, but you get to move and attack during your turn. You're on a timer, and every moment you move or hit the enemy, the timer ticks down. The enemies have that advantage too, and you have to manage hits while trying to protect yourself from a ton of damage. It tends to become a lot more complex the more team members you get into it, and I think it's a satisfying RPG fighting system. If you're like me and appreciate great style and ambition, I think you will find something great here. It has a look and style unique to itself and beautiful music on top of that. It opened my eyes to some great classical works, and I think that's awesome. It's one well worth checking out. Before we move on, I want to say thank you so much for watching so far in this video, and if you're enjoying it so far, please leave a like because it helps me out in the algorithm, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. But let's go ahead and move on. When I talk about flawed but ambitiously fun games, the one that springs right to my mind is Alpha Protocol. It was released in 2010 for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC. It was published by Sega and developed by Obsidian Entertainment, the studio behind Fallout New Vegas. This is another RPG that received extremely mixed reviews, with some enjoying it and others not. It's a bit buggy and messy at times, yet it's one of those one-of-a-kind games that does so many interesting things that it still feels fresh today. It's extremely fun too, and a playthrough with this one will be a great time. Alpha Protocol is a spy RPG, and I think the closest game I can compare it to is Mass Effect. It's a third-person shooter where you go through various missions and your choices matter. Even the dialogue selection screen feels like Mass Effect, and knowing Obsidian, the writing here is well done. If you like great spy series that are more like Jason Bourne instead of James Bond, then you'll enjoy this one. You play as Michael Thornton, and you unravel a conspiracy with a spy agency where you have every resource to complete your covert missions. There are so many choices and decisions to make, and I had fun rolling through this plot. I really love how they found a way to make Thornton customizable. This is an in-depth RPG with stats for different types of weapons and stealth. You are going to want to stick to very few weapon classes because you will have a highly leveled character, and you can dominate with whatever weapon class you stick with because you're going to put skill points into it. There's also plenty of perks, and there is enough of a selection here that if you start a new game, it'll be completely different every time you play. It's the RPG elements that keep me sticking around. The stealth and shooting are a bit basic. There's also bugs in this game whenever you play it, so it does have small issues. And I'm not going to say everything in this game clicks, and that's why it gets an underrated status. I think for people who can overlook smaller issues for a bigger picture feeling, you're going to be able to dig a lot out of this experience. The RPG elements and dialogue are wonderfully done, and I don't think they have ever replicated anything like this again. Getting into the customization here, it's easy to overlook some issues and find a blast of a memorable game underneath it. Alpha Protocol won't be everyone's cup of tea, but those who try it might absolutely love it. The final game on today's list is Lord of the Rings Conquest. It came out in 2009 and was published by EA and developed by Pandemic, who made our first game on today's list with the Saboteur. And it was the same year, which would be a double part of the reason for their closure. This was released on the PS3, 360, and PC, with a release on the Nintendo DS as well. Conquest was pretty negatively received upon release and was marred by server issues. It doesn't help though that EA shut down the servers for this game around a year after the game came out, never giving this game the proper chance it needed. So before we get into it, I do want to say this is a multiplayer focused game and you can't play it on the 360 anymore, though there is a good single player campaign here. The best way to describe this is Star Wars Battlefront for Lord of the Rings. It's made by the same studio and it fits the same archetype of those games. If you like Battlefront, Conquest is going to be right up your alley. It has great simple gameplay with a mix of classes. You will capture areas and take out bosses, swapping between mages, archers, warriors, and more. It's one of those giant arcadey feeling games that when I pop it in, always ends up being a good time. Throw in that you can play any of the heroes from the series, and it's just neat to roll around these giant areas with them. Conquest scratches that action game itch, and the button mashing and huge amount of enemies are one of those simple, fun gaming experiences. I'll say it just like I said for other games on today's list, it's not perfect, it has some balancing issues, and I do think the graphics are not that impressive for the time, yet those are things I find easy to overlook with just how fun this game is. Throw in that you get a mix of battles from the movies and new ones that help make this one interesting. It does use clips from the movie instead of CG cutscenes, which I do find a bit disappointing and cheap, though if you're gonna pull from movies, those are solid movies to pull from. The Evil campaign mode is the real standout here and offers something different compared to your usual Lord of the Rings games. You go into huge battles, capture points, and it's much like Battlefront in terms of simplicity. You can find a lot of entertainment here. This one was snuffed out way too early, and I think that made it underplayed and underappreciated. By the time I even got my hands on it, the thing was already dead, yet it still managed to be an enjoyable experience offline. I think this is one you should try. Well, that wraps it up for today. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, it helps me on the algorithm. Subscribe to keep up with the retro Xbox content, and be sure to check out my second channel, Camp Extras, for more retro gaming content. And be sure to comment below with any memories of these games or what you think should be included on this list next. And I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube channel members. Thank you so much for your support. You really help out the channel. And I'll see you here next time at Camp Xbox.